first place people are going to come in. And so this is the view they're going to get when they walk in. They get to see this. I mean, how can you not go, oh my goodness? We want them to be able to see the river and the importance of the river.
It's the middle of winter along the Central Platte near Gibbon, Nebraska. These few hundred miles of interstate are known to most as simply a route west. Actually, on my trips here this spring, I found that these vast agricultural lands and wet meadow habitats contain much more than drive-by scenery. Adjacent to the Platte River, this land is crucial for hundreds of thousands of migratory birds. The most known of these is the lesser sandhill crane. Here, the cranes and many other species fatten up for several weeks before heading north for summer nesting. Because of a history of water diversions and intense agriculture, the Platte's water and habitats face threats never before seen. I set out to see how different conservation organizations work to preserve habitat and to continue to encourage the public's awareness of the spectacular spring migration, when hundreds of thousands of sandhill cranes stop in central Nebraska. One stop for many is Audubon Society's Rowe Sanctuary. I spent a day or two here in late winter. The premises are empty now, but all that changes in a few weeks when close to 15,000 visitors come to Rowe Sanctuary to witness the spectacle.
The cranes bring so many different people together. It's something that people from all walks of life enjoy seeing and experiencing. So we get people from all over the country, like I said, East Coast, West Coast, Florida, everywhere you can think of, from everywhere from school teachers to CEOs of major companies.
The birds attract not only people from the Midwest and around the country, but from all over the world.
And we have a map in here that we have been running for the last several years. And what we do is we ask people to put a pin in where they're from. And we have gotten over the years, all 50 states, and I think last year it was around 54 different countries that came here just to see the cranes.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Now, the maps sit empty, waiting for the first visitor to mark their travel. In late February, the first of the birds will make their way to central Nebraska, and Rowe Sanctuary staff begin 6 weeks of dawn to dusk work. Until then, there's only empty skies. Less than a mile from the interstate, as I drove through county roads, it quickly became clear the cranes had returned. Winding through cornfields of hungry birds, I finally arrived at Rowe Sanctuary, where things were coming to life.
Really, our goals from the very beginning were to let people know that this great migration was happening and how important the Platte River was to an entire species of birds like the cranes. Our mission is to conserve Platte River ecosystems for cranes and other wildlife through conservation and education.
One way Rowe Sanctuary educates is through volunteer-guided morning and evening crane viewing trips, striving to connect people to place.
Personal experiences out in nature that make that connection. So we try to provide opportunities for people to make that personal connection, whether it's on our walking trails or through programs or just having a place for families to come out and enjoy the river and to make that personal experience connection.
During crane season, I want to make sure that people understand the importance of what's happening here. I have a little bit of an idea of the biology of these birds, where they're coming from and where they're going. and then just understand what we do here on the Platte River does affect those cranes.
Even though the fog scared away the cranes earlier in the morning and left us with a gloomy view, there was still something beautiful and eerily captivating by the empty river. How the morning light pierced through the fog. Though this morning the birds left early, Rowe staff and volunteers say no 2 days in the river are the same, just as the water that constantly flows east always changes. And back inside the building, guests arrived for educational offerings, the Crane Carnival. Perhaps the most comprehensive organization working to conserve Platte River habitat is a federally mandated Platte River Recovery Implementation Program under the direction of Dr. Jerry Kenny. Using a paradigm of adaptive management, the program is governed by a committee that meets several times a year, managing water and land resources. The program acquires land and decides on specific on-the-ground restoration projects.
Then you have to do rehabilitation work, which is a lot of clearing of trees, restoration of grasslands in the channel itself, clearing vegetation, trying to restore the broad, shallow, braided, bare sand river form that we believe that is beneficial for the species.
On program land, I met land manager Tim Tunnell, who oversees all land-based projects. Today, he was supervising the beginning stages of a multi-year process of grassland restoration.
This wooded area here is going to be slated for tree removal in the future, and we're doing a prescribed burn on this to the theory is to maybe try to return it back to a grassland using fire rather than dozers as a potential tool to get it done.
The program hires outside contractors to implement Tim's burn prescription. They work to circle the area, assess the weather conditions, and eventually to start the flames, keeping them constantly in check. It's an amazing process to observe, seeing such composure and calculation in a seemingly unstable procedure.
The goal in the future is to open up this wooded area to the river. The main channel of the river is just on the backside of these trees, and then there we'll have managed island habitat.
We watched the day's events from a nearby gravel mound the program built, which will serve as nesting sites for the endangered piping plover and interior leaf tern. With a constructed nesting site, the traditional wet meadow habitat, and island sandbar habitats, the program hopes to attract birds, restoring fragmented, threatened populations. The basic idea of adaptive management is to design, implement, measure, analyze, assess, and adjust. With the two areas adjacent to each other across the traditional wet meadow habitat, the program can assess which nesting site is more attractive to birds. The knowledge gained from these efforts will prove invaluable in the long-term sustainability of habitat restoration projects conducted on the Platte River.
Hey Bruce, you up on crew?
Yeah, bud.
Hey, just to let you know, I'm coming in with Tim and the photographer. We'll be in the big dump truck.
I copy.
A little already fell down. These little ones.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, they were standing earlier. Oh, you can see it right there at the butt.
Yeah. Ultimately, the wet meadow habitat is there in the understory, and this is kind of a experiment, if you will, on trying to take the top-down approach to getting back to that wet meadow.
Sorry?
That's how. Yeah.
Copy.
I think, given what we have to work with, we couldn't ask for.
I'm just happy about the smoke.
Yeah.
With a network of organizations like the Audubon Society's Rowe Sanctuary and the Platte River Recovery Implementation Program, the Platte River has many people looking after it in a variety of ways, working to sustain a valuable resource. Whether it's education or habitat restoration, a community of organizations provide necessary effort to conserving river and wildlife. Every year during the spring migration, Kearney hosts the Rivers and Wildlife Celebration, dedicating a weekend to celebrating a resource that unites so many people. The event features wildlife viewing trips, booths full of information, educational presentations, and guest lectures.
After he's eaten duckling, went into a spontaneous dance. Apparently so later.
Just as the river runs through the landscape, meandering through many communities and towns, I found people from all over the state and country. And all of these people and myself can agree, Central Nebraska's Platte River is an amazing place worth sharing and conserving.